if you were going to argue that it was a final verdict, what are the points that you would make?
Well, they deliberated on it, and it was tried on the merits.
All right, we're going to talk today about the Karen Reed trial and the big revelation that just came out that
There's a mistrial.
there was mistrial, but more importantly, after the mistrial, jurors are now coming out saying, hey,
There's no mistrial.
yeah, on two counts out of the three. On two, they said that they had a unanimous decision. At least there's been 4 jurors so far that have stated, and I think all 4 have signed the affidavit now saying that we came to a unanimous agreement that she was not guilty of murder and of, second-degree murder, and then I can't remember the other charge off the top of my head right now.
DUI and fleeing the scene of the crime. Something like that.
But they said there's the one that they couldn't come to unanimous agreement on, and so let's jump into it. Okay, tell us a little bit of the background of what's going on with this case.
Okay, so Karen Reed is the girlfriend of the deceased O'Keefe from Boston. He's a police officer, and he was found dead in a snowbank in June 2022.
June or January?
I'm not even sure. It's J.
It's like June. It's the snowbank in June?
Or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So he was found dead in a snowbank, and then everyone pointed out to Karen as the person in charge of his death. The reason why is that they allegedly have like a few backgrounds. They don't have really good relationships leading to the day of the event, and she dropped her off allegedly in the house of the Alberts,
And
where he was found dead outside.
And they're police officers too.
And they are police officers too.
Like some members of the family are. So
they were out drinking. They were out drinking that night with the Alberts, and it's like a 30 people party.
oh wow.
Yeah.
But there wasn't that many that late at night, right?
No.
Okay.
But there were a lot of people at the house of the Alberts because it was like an after party. But Karen said she didn't join them. She just dropped off her boyfriend, O'Keefe. And she woke up in the morning looking for him. He wasn't there. She got worried. And then next thing she knows, they found him
outside
the house of the Alberts.
This could become a constitutional law question because what has happened is during the trial, it was the jury unanimously decided that she was not guilty of 2 charges. But what happened is when it went back to the judge, or when they came back to the judge gave some really confusing instructions. It almost, and I believe the jury was right, was you can't, the way she had worded it was, you can't make a determination until you made on all 3 counts. But that's not what the law is.
Yeah.
They very well could have made a decision on the other counts and then decided those counts and just not had a unanimous agreement and had not a mistrial in the whole case, but a mistrial on just the 1 count. So what ended up happening is the jury claims now that they were kind of confused. At least that's the hearsay reports that we're getting back, that they thought, hey, we made a decision on these 2, but this 1, they were just not going to come up with a decision on. So why this is a big issue is there's actually a Supreme Court case on almost an identical case like this.
Really?
Yes, and the Supreme Court decided in that case that you cannot, or that they can retry on all the counts, except for there was a statement by the opinion of the Supreme Court that said that there wasn't a final decision made. That's why they could be retried. I can't For the life of me now, I forgot the name of the case. I was reading it right before I came in here. Arkansas versus it's a person versus Arkansas. So now it went off the top of my head, but it'll come to me in just a second. But the Supreme Court said there was no final decision made. So the question's going to be here, did the jury actually make a final decision?
Well, that's what they're claiming.
Well, that's what 4 jurors are claiming. But the question is how do you rectify this situation? Like, you've already called everybody home. Are you going to call back all jurors to come back to court, and then they all need to come out and make a decision and sign off and say, hey, we made a final decision on these 2? And so I'm going to put myself as if I was the judge in this situation. Like, what would I do? Clearly, I want to be careful here because people like to go, oh my gosh, look how awful the judge was, or look how awful this person was in the trial. People have no idea how difficult this is to do an actual trial. It is probably one of the most difficult jobs that exists, is being a trial attorney. And now, why is that? It's way harder than any type of surgery. It's way harder than any type of almost combat sport you can do. And the reason why is because there's so many variables that you have to remember. You not only have to keep in the back of your mind all the facts of a case, number one. So you got to remember everything. Okay? You have to be very articulate and explain that to other people in a concise way, not giving too much information, not giving too little. So somehow you have to balance that out in your mind, while at the same time keeping in the back of your mind all the rules of procedure rules, not the law rule. Just so people are out there, just so they understand. When you go to law school, you have to learn the procedures and you have to learn the law. And you screw up on the procedures, you screw up your whole case. So this is one of my problems when people critique these people that are the prosecutor, the defense attorneys, the judge. Most of these people, even attorneys, most of the attorneys have never actually argued anything in court. Have never had a trial before, because most attorneys never do.
Me too. I've never had a trial before.
Yeah, I think it's the majority. I think it's like ridiculously high, like 70% attorneys.
Well, I mean, most attorneys would want to settle and not allow the case to go into trial.
Yeah.
Because it takes a long time. It dries up your client's money, and it's just not practical.
Yeah. No.
If you can settle something, settle something.
I think I have 5 trials, if I remember right, 15 years. 3 of them were when I did criminal defense work. Because those ones, sometimes you have to go to trial. And that was only for about 3 years of my career of being of doing criminal defense work. So that was the first 3 years at a law school. So you got to think, and a lot of my cases that went to trial that were going along, I had to assign off to an attorney because I didn't have enough. I didn't feel like I was competent to take the more serious case. So the 3 that I ended up having to take to trial were people. One, it's because it was on what we call the will, which is they don't have any money. No one would take their case. So, but on all 3 of those, cases that I tried, it was so difficult, and they were easy cases. Trying to keep track of everything in your head. I'm supposed to be objecting to this. I'm supposed to be doing this. I have to somehow convince the jury. I can't give too much information. Do I have my client testify? Do I not have my client testify? And so it gets easy at this point to be critical of even the judge. And you go, well, the judge should know. But there's so many rules that you have to remember. Yeah. And you got 29 days of an incredibly complex case. And so I want to throw it out there, like, it's easy to be armchair critics, even attorneys of these people, but they are asked to do incredibly difficult work. Like, this is not easy to do at all, and I'm impressed when I watch how much they were able to keep everything in order.
Me too. I really admire litigators, just in general.
They're impressive in their ability to and to not only, like, you have to have all that ability, and then you have to be brave enough to stand in front of a judge, and when that judge says something, go, you're wrong. All right, there it is. Blueford versus Arkansas. This is the case. It was a Supreme Court case, and it decided on the decision was that if there's not a final verdict made in a case, that you can be retried. It does not violate double jeopardy under the Fifth Amendment. But the question here is going to be, so Therese, I'm going to throw this out to you. Here is my question to you. If you were going to argue that it was a final verdict, what are the points that you would make?
Well, they deliberated on it, and it was tried on the merits. Everything was presented. Both sides were heard. Evidence were seen. So I don't see why it can't be a final verdict if they already decided. They just can't decide with one charge, but both other charges, which is separate and has separate penalty. I don't see why. Why do you have to decide on all three before you can actually have a final verdict?
So my argument against that it was the actual final verdict, if I was having to argue the other side, I'm hoping that's the right answer, because I don't think the state should be able, an error like this should force somebody to have to hire attorneys again and pay millions of dollars to defend themselves again in a case like this. Like, if the government screws up and this happens to you, I think people. But let's go back, and why I have a feeling that it's not a final verdict. I'm imagining that part of a final verdict involves the judge also making a final verdict on those issues. I imagine there's going to be something along those lines that, since the judge didn't, actually review it and go through and make sure that everything was correct, it wasn't actually final. So, but that brings up a great question, because, judges are supposed to be the neutral party, and that's kind of deceptive because they're really not. Judges are far more, they're paid by the government. Their offices are right next to the prosecutors' offices. They see the prosecutors every day. They go to parties with the prosecutors. They're way more involved with prosecutors than they are defense attorneys and the defendants. So while we like to believe, oh yeah, they're the neutral party, my experience has been there's no such thing as a neutral party. And the way that we've designed the courts and the buildings counties do is prosecutors have significant advantages.
Yeah. With this rule, it gives so much elbow room for error for the prosecutor's side, at least. Because if you just say that, if there's an error, we'll declare mistrial, and just have to start all over again.
Yep.
From scratch. Like witnesses, you have to reach out to all the witnesses and the evidence and all those things. What if you can't anymore?
Karen Reed probably has a lot of people donating to her prosecution. I imagine she's getting money for her story so she can finance this. But you have to think of it also from the perspective of 99.99% of criminal defendants aren't getting any money. If this case did not become popular, she's probably forked out like $2 million plus.
She would have had to pay it herself.
Yes, and there's no way she could have. So she could not have had this good of a legal team. The FBI has financed a lot of this because a lot of the expert testimony is coming from the FBI. So you have all these benefits that she's getting, which I call the pretty girl benefits. If Karen Reed was ugly, she would not have any of these benefits.
She's very pretty.
Yeah, and so she's getting this extra benefit that ugly people don't get. And did I sent that to you, Ryan?
I don't know, maybe.
No, on Instagram about the cockroach and the butterfly.
Yeah,
It's so true.
It's so true.
What was it? What was the statement?
If you kill a cockroach, you're a murderer. You're a hero. No, right?
Something like that.
If you kill a butterfly, you're a murderer.
Yeah. And that's so. And then basically the whole point of it is that we have morality is based upon beauty.
It's same as assault. It's sexual assault if the guy is ugly, but if the guy is good looking, it's hot.
Speak the truth for us ugly men, Therese. Tell everyone, us ugly men have to suffer under the pain of just being ugly. But it's true.
It's true. It's just how it is.
And it's something that we, you want to talk about the greatest privilege that exists. It's being a beautiful person. Like if you are beautiful.
But it's also not, we're getting out of the real here, but it's also not just physical. It's how you present yourself.
Yeah, whatever.
Like the charm.
No, I get what you're saying. Say that all day long. But no, that is actually true. I mean, you go online and you watch really ugly people
Charm their way.
Well, no, they dress very well.
Oh yeah.
They keep themselves fit and presentable. You know, put on enough makeup. You can look very, very different.
Yes.
And then you can take someone who's a decent looking person that, you know, especially guys that don't shave, they don't really bathe, and they, you know, kind of let things get out of control, and they do not look as presentable.
Exactly.
And there's something, you know, you get this feeling there's something off, but yes. But back to the Karen Reed trial, some of the things, as someone who formerly did criminal defense work, is I want people to appreciate all the back stuff that they don't see about how difficult this is. Because I go online and I just read how people are just ripping into everybody.
Well, yeah, but because they don't really know how these things work. They think that you just show up there and just like try and defend your way out of it. It's not that easy.
No, and just give people an understanding, like,
no, it's not easy. It's not even that. It's not that easy. It's not easy.
How many rules are you having to try to memorize right now for the bar for civil procedure?
Not even a lot, because ours is like summarized. Oh, you just have to remember this, just have to remember this, just remember this. Imagine if you have to remember everything. And it's already a lot. That the summarized version for the bar is already a lot. Imagine the actual rules that we have to know.
Yeah, and one of the most difficult things is whenever you're doing depositions, or it's so draining to do deposition, or just sitting there to constantly listening. Objection, you know, non-responsive. Objection, like you have to be on your feet. And literally, almost every question, it bothers me because almost every question you can object to, because the way most attorneys ask questions at trial even is, you know, they're not asking the question the way you're supposed to ask it, which is the actual person is supposed to speak. You're not supposed to lead them to the answer.
They do it in a way that it's misleading, and it's okay for the opposing counsel to object just so the jury hears it.
Yeah.
They do it in that way. They don't really care about your response.
Yeah.
They need to construct it in a way that once you hear it, it would trigger something on your mind, like maybe like a bias or something.
The idea is you want at trial that whoever's giving the testimony is actually giving testimony and saying what happens, versus, isn't it correct that this happened? It's like, well, that's leading. You're telling the person what happened. But I'm going to be honest with you. That's ideal. But it's like you can never, ever get to the points when you don't ask leading questions. Like you will sit there, and I think all of attorneys has just gotten to the point where we just don't object to them anymore because we're like, just answer the question for the guy because we don't want to sit here all day while you're trying to get to the point. All right. It's like one of my cases. I had this guy, this is being young and naive and not really realizing like, okay, you ask leading questions. You don't ask them what they're supposed. And so I'm like preparing this guy all before the hearing. I'm like, okay, do not just answer the questions directly. Don't give the judge a lot to think about here. Because I'm pretty confident my client was committing a crime. I think he was picking up the prostitute, basically. That's what he was charged with. And that's what the cop said, eventually what he was pulling up. And I think that's really what he was trying to do. But the cop said the reason why he pulled him over was because of a broken taillight. But then magically the video...
There was a prostitute there.
Yeah, and so it's like magically his video didn't, got lost,
That is a valid... stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And so naive of me, I asked my client the very first question. First, we're going into the courtroom. Okay. The first thing I tell to him is like, the judge is a former police officer. Pull up your pants. Okay. Pull them up. First thing we walk into the courtroom, judge goes, pull up your pants. And I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm like, this is not going over well. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, should I put him on the stand? So I put him on the stand and I'm like, all right, okay. I'm going to say the very first thing he does is he puts his feet up on the bench. And I'm just like just sitting back like this, And I'm just like, because the judge goes, he goes, put your feet down. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, please don't do anything anymore. And so I asked him the question. It's like, okay, on this day, what were you doing driving on this street on this day? Picking up my home girl. And I was like, oh, I've lost. And like, I was like, you could have said pretty much anything else. I was just driving down the street, going here. And I'm like, why did I ask such an open-ended question like that? I should have just asked him a leading question. Isn't it true that you were trying to go over to your friend's house, Steve's? It's like, that's how I should have asked the question. And it was like after we got all done. And, it didn't turn out well for me in the case.
Did you watch one of the defense attorneys grilling one of the key witnesses for this case? Catherine, I guess her name was. And there were a lot of shady things about this case. And one of the things that the defense was relying on is that the wife of the police officer, of the owner of the house, I believe, or one of the wives of the party goer.
Yeah.
She searched how long can a man die in the cold?
Yeah, or it's like how long does it take for a man?
Yeah, how long does it take a body to freeze to death?
Yeah.
Is one of the things that she searched at 2 a.m.
I watched the testimony when the expert said and how the defense, I guess there is an argument that search didn't happen till later.
Yeah, they said it was a glitch.
It was a glitch.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's my problem. It's like that alone is reasonable doubt.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't care what you have to say. When you have somebody there and you have technology saying at 2:00 in the morning, how long does it take for someone? People don't search that.
How often can there be a glitch? And it just so happened that perfect time.
Yeah.
There was a glitch.
Yeah.
It's very convenient. It's too convenient.
And now that being said, it could have been that she searched it at 2:00 in the morning because, Karen showed up, hit him, and accidentally or whatever.
But that's not their testimony.
I know. That's the whole thing is.
Yeah.
It feels like there's a lot of lying going on. Because even on Karen Reed's part, she changed her testimony on things. And, I mean, there are people saying they heard her say that.
She hit him.
Yeah.
She hit him. Yeah.
My gut feeling on everything of like when I'm watching and I'm listening to everybody is of course, it's not true that, one person's lying and that they're all lying and everything. But it's hard for me to see both sides on it. Like, there's definitely a reasonable doubt. Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind.
But Taylor, the burden of proof is on the prosecutor. It's not on the defense. She doesn't need to prove she didn't do it. They need to prove that she did it.
I know
that's what they need to do. And it seems like she's trying so hard to defend herself that she didn't do it when the prosecutor can't even present at least a proof that she actually did it.
Yeah.
There's no concrete evidence. They're all relying on circumstances around it.
Yes, and I think you bring up like the best point of the whole thing, which is, in my opinion, when the prosecutor rested his case, there should have been a directed verdict because on some of those charges, because they did not present any evidence that the car, which they claimed, killed him. They brought out these experts that attempted to try to make an explanation, but the actual evidence of his death, what the doctor said, who examined him, is he died from not from being hit by a car. I don't know how they got around that whole thing of like, you have to have direct evidence of your claim that you presented. And when I was going through everything, I saw experts say, well, it's possible that this is the way he died. Well, it doesn't matter if it was possible, is what does the direct evidence say? What do the experts, who are the people that examined the body? The people who examined the body said he died from, I think it was those lacerations, but he died from lacerations on his arm, which there was no evidence presented how those lacerations happened, and he froze to death.
Yeah, and they said that the shards of the taillight might have cut his arms and all those things. But does it make sense to have a head trauma when you're hit by a car and not have any trauma around your body?
Yeah.
It's just, there's just so many questions here that weren't answered.
Well, yeah, and that's my whole point. I didn't see any direct evidence to show the car. Yeah, I get what people are going to say. Well, there was the tail light there. Okay, well, it's like you can have tail light there, but that doesn't say how he died. She could have hit him with the car and him go inside the house, party all night, get way drunk, and then wander out and die. That's why we look at the actual reason you died. What was the actual cause of death? And they're saying, hey, his actual cause of death was not being hit by a car. It was he froze to death. Well, the argument was, well, he got hit, his head hit, and then he was there, and that's why he died. But the question is there was no evidence I saw that was presented to show that the car actually hit him and caused him any injuries other than these. Well, this is a way that it possibly could have happened. Instead, the defense provided evidence that he died. That he died a different way. That he got into a fight. Some issue happened. If I was to guess, what I saw, the story that I believe probably what happened, is she dropped him off. Sounded like she was really pissed off because he had been cheating on her. Okay, and there's allegations that somebody at the party was maybe somebody that might be somebody of interest. He went into the house. There is something about this affair that maybe somebody there was involved with or something. An altercation happened. Looks like maybe the dog attacked him. I personally don't believe cops are this stupid to drag his body outside and let him freeze and then go, oh, he froze to death.
I mean, maybe they didn't think he was dying, or he just died after all that altercation.
Yeah. I personally believe a better, more logical thing happened. The fight happened. He got hit really hard in the head. Family was probably, get out of here, whatever. But he left and passed out in the snow or something along those lines. I think that's probably more likely of a scenario that happened.
Yeah.
And then their side is saying, They don't want to admit that there was a fight because now they realize, oh, he went outside and died, so they want to make a different claim. I don't know, but that seems more logical of a scenario that happened because his injuries show signs that there was an actual altercation with an animal.
I don't know. I feel like if there are just this many doubts in a case, there's just really no reason to retry it. It's obviously...
If you're being investigated by the FBI and
they will.
Your prosecution office and the police department are freaking out.
They are freaking out. Did you look at all the evidence that they have? They gathered blood samples using the red cups, the solo cups.
I know, it's
It's
really bad.
ridiculous.
Yeah. It was a shoddy investigation. It's hard to understand really what was going on here because it's like the argument from the defense is she's being framed. But why do such a shitty job framing someone? It honestly feels like the prosecution really didn't believe this was a murder at the beginning. They just needed someone to point the finger at, I guess. Yeah, something must have happened along the way, but it sounds like kind of at least what I saw from the investigators came in, they did their investigation, try to get a few things, but really thought this was just going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
they didn't think it would get this big.
You're not going to be texting things about looking for nude photos of her on her phone if you think this is going to go to trial.
Yeah.
Like, you have to know as a police officer that everything that you're texting, messaging will become part. So clearly, in my opinion, unless people are just, is the investigators, the way that they behaved, the way they did the investigation, they didn't think this was going to go anywhere. That this was just, guy got drunk, went out and died.
Just another dead body.
And then, for whatever reason, it did. And,
Could it be because the FBI got involved that it got really big? Because
I think the reason why they probably freaked out, one reason could be, is you're looking at it going, who are the logical people that is where most of the evidence points?
Mm-hmm. And they didn't even check it.
They didn't even check it.
They didn't close it as a crime scene, nothing.
And so when things kept going on, then the FBI got involved going, why aren't you guys investigating the police officers? And that's when things got out of, then they were like, oh gosh, we got to try this lady because we got to actually show that we actually believe it's her. And then it just was out of control. But I think that's one also when I did criminal defense work, and I would say I'd probably be guilty of this before I became a lawyer. I thought, police officers, they're just telling the truth. They're out, police officers become police officers to put bad people in jail. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of police officers that do.
Yeah, but most of them.
I wouldn't put most of them.
I mean, a lot of them too are.
You find out very well that officers lie a lot. In fact, I found them to be incredibly not trustworthy because they would behave as if I got to win at all cost. And if I have to say lies because I think your guy's a bad guy, I'm going to say him. And which was very odd for me because it's like, it's so much easier just tell the truth. Like there's usually like a way around everything, but when I'd have to put an officer on the stand, like the reports wouldn't make sense. And you would just get into this weird thing of like, this doesn't add up. Like what you're trying to say happened. It looks like you tried to not frame the guy. I understand that, a lot of my cases, my clients did do something wrong, but they would do dumb lies. Like they would write things in the report that couldn't have happened this way, but trying to make it sound worse. And it's a human behavior we all do. It's like, oh, I got to win this. So I'm going to make this worse. And it's like, no, you don't need to win this and just tell things how they are. You don't need to add on to these things. And so you run into that problem a lot in the system. And that's the hard part when you deal with this is like, you see how police officers get this deference in society of, hey, look at all these things these police officers are doing in the city. They're violating the law left and right, behaving like horrific people, and no one's being prosecuted. They get all these special purposes, and prosecutors have to. They know, like, hey, if we get on the bad side of the police,
We're doomed.
we're having a serious problem. But then you got cities like McKinney, where we live, where like you have very good police departments, very good prosecutors' office. I mean, it's done very well here, and we don't have those issues, but we also don't have a big crime rate, and so you don't have like the dirtiness. So I don't want to throw police officers completely under the bus here, because there's a lot that do a lot of good, and they do have to deal with the worst people in society, and so I'm very understanding to that. But also at the same time, I hope people get out of the care and retrial. Officers lie. They will lie. They will ruin people when they're bad people. And when you go and you're a juror, you do not just trust a police officer. You listen very carefully to what's being said and understand that the judge, the prosecutor, the police officers are all paid by the same source.
Yeah.
So it's beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's why it was set up that way. But you could see in this case,
It's so bad.
it's clear to everybody why was this jury hung up at all.
Yeah.
There is reasonable all over it.
Yes, exactly. I just don't get it.
Welcome to the system. It's because jurors don't believe in the reasonable doubt standard. They do a 50-50.
Yeah.
They say, oh, we're doing reasonable doubt. No, they're most of the time.
Most likely, maybe.
Yeah.
That kind of, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing to have a jury, because in the Philippines we don't have it. It's just a judge. So it's really just, is there a doubt? If there's a doubt, then we can't.
Well, Karen Reed would be in jail if it was just a judge right now.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I should not say that. Actually, I don't know. I don't know how the judge
would have
ruled on that. That's very unfair for her, because she, I think she was really trying to be neutral, but the hard part is the relationship she was on the prosecutor's side.
I don't like this case.
Is it bothering you?
Yeah, because it makes me, how do you trust the justice system like this?
Oh, you shouldn't.
Yeah, I know, but it's our job to supposedly make it better.
Yes, but that's the whole purpose of why the founding fathers did what they did. Yeah. That's why they created safeguards, and that's the hard thing people just don't understand. It's like, I was actually thinking about this the other day, and that is politics, governance always reverts to benefiting themselves. Mm-hmm. People who are attracted to power and to positions and that seek them out are always the people who are trying to get something out of it.
Yeah.
Very few people that are going into politics
actually just want to help.
Really want to do things. I think initially when people start, that's how it starts.
Yeah, but once you're there, they just can't let go of it anymore. And it's mostly becoming about them more than about they initially wanted to do.
The powerful thing is, like, how the founding fathers were wise enough to, like, realize this. Like, you have to limit government as much as possible. You watch it now in America. This is we basically don't believe in the Constitution anymore. We've watered it down to where it doesn't really exist the way it was intended.
It's not the same Constitution that they at least wrote.
Yeah, like the fact that we have a government that basically can tax people, that's taxing the way, like, I mean, just the idea of an income tax, how it came about. Like, at every point in our history, the goal, whenever possible, It's the government has tried to take away the freedom of people. And they're able to do it because of one thing. They argue this over and over. We have to keep you safe. That's what they say. This is to keep you safe.
Yeah.
And that's the reality is. So people don't deserve freedom unless you actually live by the principles of being a free person, which is responsibility for yourself, first and foremost, and then on top of that, respecting the rights of other people. And if people can't do that, that was one of the things that shocked me about the Philippines. When I went and I lived in the Philippines, I was like, here are these great, kind people, hyper intelligent, super smart people. When I came across people, even living out in Region 2, which is, it was clear Filipinos were very smart people, but it was a third world country. But I could see easily why. No one followed any rules. Mm-hmm. Everybody just did what they wanted to do, and no one respected anybody's property rights. They built a house whenever they wanted to do it. Just standing in line. No one respected, like you would go stand in line, everybody just walk right in front of you. Yeah. And I'd grab people and I'd put them in a line. And I'd go, there's an order. We get in line. We don't just press up. In fact, oh, okay. And like just simple things like that. And they're like, oh, you're so mean for doing that. And I go, but it's little things like that. And I watch how in America, everybody's becoming about me and we're falling apart. Because you see slowly people don't respect people's property rights. It's all about suing, taking advantage of people. And slowly, as more and more people don't follow the rules, it all will fall apart. And that's what you see things like in the Karen Reed case, young thug trial, is you're starting to see the government now not following rules and doing things the way they're supposed to.
A lot of Karen Reed issues, but
it depressed you just reading the whole thing?
Yeah. I was going through it. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Like if I was one of the juries, probably convince everyone that there's no way we can convict this woman. There's just no way.
Yeah. Not with what I saw.
Yeah, not with what I saw.
But I wasn't there the whole 29 days.
That's true. Or the whole 2 years that they were building this case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It was very, very, very difficult to see how that happened.
Yeah.
What if we brighten the mood with stupid people?
Stupid people? Let's see it.
Court calls case People versus Corey Harris.
Assistant Public Defender Natalie Tate for Mr. Harris, who should be present in Zoom.
I have seen this.
Mr. Harris, are you driving?
Actually, I'm pulling into my doctor's office, actually. So just give me 1 second. I'm parking right now.
Poor judge.
You stationary?
I'm pulling in right now at this second. Yes, I am.
All right. What are we doing?
Your Honor, we are respectfully requesting an adjournment in this matter, up possibly 2 to 4 weeks if the court would allow.
That's fine.
Okay. So maybe I don't understand something. This is a driving while license suspended?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And he was just driving. And he didn't have a license.
This is the charges, Your Honor, yes.
Face.
No, I'm looking at his
Yes.
record. He doesn't have a license. He's suspended and he's just driving.
That is correct, Your Honor.
His brain can't work fast
You
enough
know
to
why he
figure out
would
an
do that.
excuse.
So defendant's bond is revoked in this matter. Defendant is to turn himself into the Washtenaw County Jail by 6 p.m. today. Failure to turn himself in will result in a bench warrant with no bond.
All right, you stop it there, because I know what happens after. You know what happens after? So after there was, I forgot what the mix-up was that ended up happening, but basically it turned into that it was a mistake, that he did have a license, he had a right to be driving, and so everybody started apologizing to the guy, because everybody was laughing about this and everything.
So he had a license?
No.
Oh, okay.
Because then it turned out that he was lying about that he went on, and that he really didn't have a license, and that the judge was actually right in the first time. So everybody had like recant their apologies, and then they were all pissed off. But it was just like, but that's a perfect example of society falling apart. It's like not following rules. Like
So funny.
you have to get a license. Like if you want to drive, he's like going to a court hearing, driving at once, which is also a violation. Like driving, like people just don't care. They don't care about
using his phone while driving.
Yeah, it's already bad enough that you don't even like get dressed up for a court hearing when you're a criminal defendant. It's amazing to me that they allow Zoom hearings for criminal defense cases.
Crazy, right? How the world has changed.
Yeah, but look at that poor judge. I mean, he's just sitting there just like,
I don't know.
I have to deal with this all day long.
Initially, he was going to be nice, but then he was just like there.
He's like, what is he? He's being charged with a thing that he's committing right now. Like, but like, see, there's a good judge right there. You can tell that guy's a good judge. I bet you anything, he tries to do the right thing all the time. See, we've been talking about a lot of bad judges lately, and it's like, I shouldn't say they're bad judges. They're just judges that are
questionable,
making mistakes left and right. I shouldn't judge character of people that I don't know, and they're making some significant mistakes that are harming people. But here's a judge that looked like he was going to be understanding. He was going to try to help him out.
I know. He looks like.
And then he's just like, nope, you're not getting it. But anyway, all right, guys, we're going to wrap this one up. But this is the depressing Karen Reed case.